Welcome back to DIY guitar making at Eric Schaefer Guitars. My name is Eric Schaefer, and in the next couple of videos we're going to be talking about using a side bending machine. So let's talk about the machine itself. The concept for the machine comes from a well-respected luthier by the name of Charles Fox. Machine bending really revolutionized side bending. Let's face it, hand bending around a pipe is hard, and even if you're very good at it, there's a certain amount of variability in the results. This is not only easier for the beginner, but it offers more repeatability than hand bending does. For those interested, however, I do teach hand bending in my online course, Building an OM Acoustic, so check that out if you're interested in learning hand bending amongst many other guitar building topics. There's over 60 videos in there, along with discounts to luthier suppliers and access to a private forum with myself and other builders. I'm not going to talk about how to build a side bending machine here. You can find plans online, or you can simply buy a side bending machine from a luthier supplier. I do, however, want to talk a little bit about building the forms for the side bender, because regardless of what side bending machine you use, whether you buy it or build it from plans, you're probably going to want to make your own forms for the specific shape of the guitar that you want to build. So there's a couple different ways to make these forms. I've seen them just as 2 sheets of plywood or MDF with several dowels or metal pipes connecting the 2 pieces on the outside. So when the side is pressed against the form, it takes on the shape of the form by being pressed against those dowels in the middle. However, what I like about this type of form is that each section of MDF is routed to shape using the previous section as a template. The end result is that the form is perfectly square all the way across its shape. So it all starts with a thin piece of MDF. This is a 1/4 inch. I trace out my shape on this 1/4 inch MDF, and then I very carefully sand or file this down to the line that I traced on it. I make sure that all the curves are really smooth, because this is going to be my template that the rest of the form is based off of. By the way, I find that a spindle sander works really great here at getting those curves smooth and perfect. So next, I would double stick tape this piece, my original piece, my template, down to the first piece of MDF that I have here. Right now, this piece would just be an oversized piece of MDF. I would stick this down to it, and I would rough cut out that shape on a bandsaw, and then bring it down flush to this shape with a flush trim bit on my router table. And that will get it perfectly flush to this shape right here. So then I can take this template off because I double stick taped it down, put it aside. So I would now have my first piece. Next, I would glue this piece down to my second piece. Once again, after the glue dries, cut that to shape and route it to shape on the router table. Now I have these 2 sections stuck together, glue that down to the next piece, cut it to shape, route it, and on and on. It's a lot of waiting for glue to dry, but if you have other things in the shop that you can do in the meantime, this really is the best way to do it. And you might be wondering why I didn't just glue down my template as well. Instead, I used the double stick tape. The reason for that is just so that I can keep my template for other purposes. When you're building a guitar, there's a lot of reasons that having these templates around are just really helpful. Now you also want to make a shoe for the waist press. And you also want this to be nice and square across and to fit the area of the waist on your form. Actually, I have that backwards. There we go, that's a much better fit. You want that to fit perfectly. This is very simple. You just take a large piece of MDF. Here I just glued 2 scrap pieces of MDF together. I traced out this shape onto those 2 pieces, cut it on the bandsaw, very roughly of course, and then I stuck down 40 grit sandpaper. Yep, 40 grit. You can use 60 grit or whatever. I would just really use the grittiest sandpaper that you have in the shop, because it really doesn't matter as far as getting those scratches out. We're really just trying to take on the shape of this form. So I would stick down my 40 grit and take my block and just spend a little time sanding like this until it conforms perfectly to our shape. And keep in mind, if you plan on doing a Florentine cutaway like this, then you're going to have to make a separate mold just for that cutaway section as well. So you'll have two molds, the one I just showed you, and something that would look something like this. As you can see, the only part of this form here, I said mold before, but I meant to say form. The only part of this form that we use here is this section here, and the waist press would press down right in this area to take on this shape. So if you're not familiar with making a Florentine cutaway guitar, essentially you have to bend 3 pieces for the sides instead of just 2. You have your one side on the top where the player's arm rests, and then on the bottom side where you have the cutaway, you're going to have to cut that into 2 pieces. One for the cutaway section right here, and one for the rest of the guitar. And that's it for now. Tune in next time and we'll talk about some of the other things you need before getting started with a side bender, like the thermal blankets and steel slats. And we'll talk a little bit about preparing the wood itself for bending. If you learned something here, please give this video a like and subscribe so you can be notified when I release a new DIY guitar making video every Friday. And if you want to really learn more, take one of my structured online courses at ericschaferguitars.com or register for a hands-on guitar building workshop here with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania.